Bruce, welcome to the Awesome Dad Show.
I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here. Apparently, I'm an awesome dad, so I guess that qualifies me.
I think so. I've listened to you. You're crushing it in Orlando on the soccer and the commentary, and just a lot of great things. Can't wait to get into that. But before we get into that, I just want to ask you a question. We were just
Sure.
talking a little bit before the show started. What was it like when your son told you that he was going to go out and vote this year and do his civic duty?
Well, I think it was great. He turned 18 in December, and this was something that he had really eyed, something he wanted to do, and he started paying attention to politics and wanted to know when he could vote, when he could register, and today it culminates. I'm in Florida. It comes all together, and he's out and he's voting for his candidate, and we'll see what happens with the results tonight and what happens really with what's going on in our country right now. And hopefully we're past everything that's taking place now when it comes to the general election in November. And hopefully in November, he'll actually be in college, which is a big unknown right now for the class of 2020.
Yeah, it seems to me as parents, there's just so much unknown to go through, whether it's coronavirus or political unrest or economy concerns. Have you had any conversations like that with your son? And how did that look? How did that go? Is he concerned?
Absolutely. I mean, right now, he was in Washington, D.C. on a trip, um, and his trip was canceled about 2 hours after he was in the White House
Mm,
and had to fly home, and he was home 2 days early. And then the reality started really creeping in as decisions were made. You had first, school was going to be closed this week. No, actually, that wasn't even the first thing. The first thing was spring sports look like we're done. So his volleyball team's 7-0. So that's probably over. You've got school out in our county. They said school is out this week, and then next week was spring break. Got news for you. We're going to be out for weeks, if not months. So prom is at stake. Actually, walking at graduation is at stake. My oldest son is supposed to graduate college on May 1st. Not sure if that's going to happen. My youngest son graduating high school May 30th. Not sure if that's going to happen. So the reality for the class of 2020 is, man, we were having a great year, and all of a sudden our year is shut down. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, just today, I reached out to the folks at Bright Futures, which is a scholarship program based upon grades and community service and test scores. I reached out to them today, Bright Futures in Florida, and said, please lower the requirements for earning a scholarship, because the class of 2020 is losing out on the better part of what makes their senior year. And the economy is tanking right now. So investments are tanking, everything else. So scholarships are that much more important. So if there's one thing that you can do out there, folks, is you can go out and you can go to Bright Futures. I apologize, wasn't even sure I was going to talk about this, didn't even plan on talking about this, but go to Bright Futures in the state of Florida and send them a letter, send them an email and say, please lower the requirement for the class of 2020 to earn a scholarship, because this class is going to need all of those funds more than ever before, because investments are going down and they're missing out on so much. And in some cases, the requirements for Bright Futures and qualifying for Bright Futures is actually going down for the class of 2021. So why not give that to the students now?
I mean, it makes total sense to me. I think as fathers and as parents, we want the best for our kids. We want them to be better than us. And when the world is in such unrest, it's just
Kind of hard to make that offering to them,
right.
because when I was graduating high school, I certainly wasn't stuck in my house and not being able to see my friends and not going out and not going to parties and not having senior skip day and going to Disney with my fellow students and everything else that went together with graduation. I'm sitting here right now thinking about when I graduated from high school and knowing that my youngest son is not going to have that opportunity. I'm thinking about my college graduation and thinking about how my oldest son may not have that opportunity.
Yeah.
This is the reality. We're only a few days into what's going on right now, and it is changing minute by minute. So I think we all need to take a deep breath and really be concerned about how this is impacting our students and our children,
Yeah.
and what's going to happen with businesses. Because right now, look, Orlando City, I'm not broadcasting for at least 30 days, maybe 60 days, maybe longer. Not exactly sure what's going to happen with all of that. Luckily, 30 minutes after MLS made the announcement that they were going to shut down for at least 30 days, and we know that's going to be longer. CDC came out and said, no groups of larger than 50 for 8 weeks. So now, obviously, that is going to affect any kind of sporting event, because you can't even put on a sporting event and include teams and staff, just the essential staff, and be under 50. So
Yeah.
we are well inside of that, and we will be for a long time. But what really impressed me was Orlando City called me and said, we're going to take care of you. We're going to continue to pay you while we're having this suspension. That was great news for me, because um, every aspect of business is being affected right now. And kudos to the Mark Cubans of the world, and Orlando Cities of the world, and Zion Williamson of the world, and others, and others that Arthur Blank with Atlanta United and the Atlanta Falcons, coming out and saying, we're going to take care of our people. But there are so many people that are not going to be taken care of, and so many people that are concerned that they're going to be laid off and not have income. And that is a concern for me. For other people, it's a concern for me, because my other business is that I do credit card processing, merchant services, and business solutions. And I have customers that are worried about going out of business. They're worried about their business drying up. On Friday, just Friday, retail sales were down 20%, and restaurant sales were down 43%.
Mm.
Now, let's take those numbers. Retail is going to probably be down 70, 80. Restaurants are going to be down close to 100. And it's going to be like this for weeks, if not months.
Yeah.
So this is a time where everyone is a dad, everyone is a mom, everyone is a citizen, and everyone needs to take care of everybody else, because this is going to be a long road.
Yeah, it certainly is. Like you said, I think people can't fully comprehend how this is going to trickle out amongst every single human being on the planet. And I think we need to do the best we can for our kids. I know that several people I know, their kids are not in school. So my wife and I are talking about, well, how do we continue to educate our kids? Like, are we going to look into programs like ABC Mouse, or putting them in front of a tablet? Are we going to start leveraging these technologies? Because we want our kids to continue learning. Like your son, what are his thoughts on going to college? Has he started considering maybe attending a virtual college, or?
Well, no, I think what's going to happen is colleges right now are all virtual.
Right.
I mean, I don't know any schools that are still in class.
Right.
The University of Florida, which is where he is going to attend, is all online classes right now, and they said that will be that way for the remainder of the semester. So universities are basically going to do that. So he's supposed to start in the fall, but I would say at this point it's 50-50
Yeah.
if he's going to be going to college, and his classroom is going to be down the hall from my office.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so that's another kind of a cool thing, I think. Assuming that we get back on track eventually, and the soccer season and the sports start back up again, has he ever shown any aspirations to join you in the booth? I know that he's done that in the
He
past.
has, and he has joined me in the booth.
What was that like for me? Walk me through what that day was like, Bruce.
Oh, that was the greatest. Look, I wanted to be a broadcaster and a sports broadcaster since I was in the fourth grade, and I'd been a professional broadcaster since 1989. You can do the math on how long that's been. And I had the opportunity to call a basketball game. It was a pro basketball game, and I was slated to just do the game by myself, just doing play-by-play, no color. So I reached out to the production company and I said, look, my son is a basketball player. He's an aspiring broadcaster. If you wouldn't mind, he'd love to do the color. You don't have to pay him. He'll just join me in the booth, and it was one of the greatest experiences in the world. Here I am, say, I'm Bruce Silverman along with Ethan Silverman, and here we go. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. And a couple of times I looked at him like, why are you praising the officials by saying that was a good call? But beyond that, he did a great job, and it was a lot of fun. And it wasn't the first time that he had ever put on a headset, but it was obviously the first time that we had ever done anything together. And hopefully down the road, he's going to go to the school, go to the University of Florida, which I'm sort of having a hard time with, considering I'm a University of Georgia Bulldog,
yeah.
and he said Gators suck before he actually could say dad. So it's kind of ironic that he's going to Florida, and ironic that I told him that I thought that he should go to Florida. But I would love for him to go to Florida, have the opportunity to call games, learn the business, learn all about broadcasting, journalism, and make a run at it in this business the way he wants to, in his way, in his style, and everything else. And if I have the honor and the privilege of being able to call a game with him down the road again, that would be fantastic. But to me, it was a trip, and I don't really get nervous calling games, and I wasn't nervous that night, but I was excited, and it didn't really hit me until we were probably getting close to halftime that here I am calling a game with my 18-year-old son, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. One of the things I'm really passionate about is finding activities that both you love as a parent and your kids love, right? Because if you can merge your passions together, I think that you're setting yourself for a much more satisfying life. So sports, were you
Yeah.
ever involved with sports with your son? You ever doing any coaching or but you,
I did coach him to his chagrin. He liked when I coached, but I don't think he really liked my coaching style. Uh, and
that sounds like my wife and I when we work out. She likes to work out, just not when I'm there. Watch your
yeah,
form and all that.
it's pretty much the case. But no, but I coached him, and I watched him, and there was nothing better. And this is one of the things that, as a parent, is really disappointing about what's taking place right now in the cancellation of sports. So he chose this year not to play basketball. He's 6'5". Chose not to play basketball. He actually wanted to call the games. Well, because of technical issues, he wasn't really able to call games, but he turned his attention to playing volleyball, which he was really excited about. He's captain of the team and everything that goes along with that. And team went 7-0. The last two games he missed because he was in Washington, D.C. And that trip that he was on was actually for broadcasting. It was student television conference. And so he missed the last two matches. The team goes 7-0, and they're never going to play again. Best team that the school has ever had. They were really firing on all cylinders. And I thoroughly enjoyed going to the matches, watching them play, the camaraderie with the parents. My son encouraged me to kind of trash talk with him. And because of the nature of volleyball is you can talk to the kids and the kids can talk back. And it's not as serious as basketball or football or anything like that. Excuse me. So it was fun to talk to him during the games and make fun of him and him to say, well, okay, Baldy, and everything else. And we had fun with it. So last night, one of the things I did is I downloaded the team picture and I put on there, 7-0, perfect season. And I said, district, regional, and state champs. And I
Awesome.
sent it to all the parents. And then I sent it to him so he could share it with his teammates. So I think that's the thing that all of us are doing at this point is trying to find ways to pick these kids up through all the disappointment that they're dealing with right now. I mean, look, I'm dealing with disappointment. You're dealing with disappointment. A lot of us are dealing with disappointment. But we're older and we're more mature and we've been through disappointment. Not anything at this level, but we've dealt with things in our lives before. And so we're better prepared for that. And, you asked before, what lessons can we teach? How can we educate our children? Now's a great opportunity to take time. And I've seen memes and everything else with this, but now's a great time to teach them how to research, teach them how to invest, teach them how to do their own laundry, teach them how to clean up after themselves, teach them how to create and start businesses. These are all the things that we can teach our kids to do regardless of age. I mean, I have an 18-year-old and a 22-year-old. Even if your kids are younger, great lessons that can be taught right now that they're going to take with them when we get past this. If nothing else, kids are certainly going to know how to wash their hands.
Right. Hopefully. So breaking that down a little bit, um, I think that, like you said, it's really important that we're teaching our kids these life lessons, and it can easily be lost in the sauce. How do you actually convince your kids that they need to or should listen to these questions? Because I know that a lot of the questions that I get from fathers of teenagers is, my kid doesn't care what I say. They're just going to do the exact opposite. Was there any situation where your kid didn't listen to you, maybe learned a hard lesson and it said, "Okay, Dad, I'm ready to hear what you got for me"? Anything like that ever happen?
Sure. And as a parent, you're heartbroken when they don't listen, and then they learn the hard way. But at the same time, it helps the situation. And so, with both of them, they've taken my advice. They've not taken my advice, but have the relationship where when I do say something, it's at least partially, if not fully heated, especially at this point. Neither one of them too or rebellious, which is nice, and ultimately, I think that serves them well.
Think
Especially,
that's Do you think, I'm just curious, Bruce, you said that they've been part of the family team, they're not being rebellious. Do you think that's because you've given them a longer leash to kind of explore different ideas, or do you think it's because you've kept a tight leash so they say, hey, let's stay away from these bad things? This is There's no one right way to parent. I'm just
no,
curious.
there isn't. I would say probably medium leash.
Okay.
And I think especially with my little one, good balance between myself and my wife.
Mm, yeah.
Um, in sometimes playing good cop, bad cop. Sometimes just having differences of opinion and showing that it's okay to talk things out. And in my particular case, my wife is not his mom, but they have an amazing relationship. So I think that is an incredible lesson that sometimes marriages don't work out, and sometimes families become new families, and as a result, everybody can really learn from each other and benefit from each other.
This has actually come up quite a bit on the Awesome Dad Show because 50% of marriages now in typically
Sure.
in separation. So it's becoming a more common topic. I'm again another kind of curious question for you. Do y'all use the term step parent in the house, or is that kind of a no-go?
Um, Here's the interesting thing. I got married again in 2000, November of 2017, but have been with my wife since 2010. I had been dating her about 10 months, 8, 10 months before my boys even met her, because it was important to me to wait until I knew whether this was going to be
Yeah.
a thing or not. I didn't want, different women coming in and out of their lives. And thankfully it worked out. And the person that I started dating was the person that I ended up marrying. So it was interesting that my little one had called her stepmom for years before we even got married. And one time I even asked him about it. And he said, "Well, that's pretty much what she is, and people already think you're married, so you know that's that." And actually, when I decided that I was going to propose, I actually asked him, and because he was the one that was home from school and be affected the most. And I said, "Are you okay with this?" And he said, "I am." And you have my blessing. And then I said, "Fine, so you get to be my best man." And he was. And for him, I think it's been a really a fantastic situation, and a great um, part of his life, which is something that I'm incredibly thankful for, because I know too many people, and I heard too many stories where the step parent is persona non grata,
Right. Bad
and
word. Yeah.
the step parent doesn't like the kids, and the kids don't like the step parent. and I'm fortunate in that respect. So I think the legal term is step parent, but at this point, he doesn't call her mom, but he says she is my mom,
Yeah.
and so I think in everybody's situation it's a little bit different. And in that particular case, it was totally taking his lead in what he was comfortable with.
I think that's a really solid way to handle it. Really solid way. Bruce, I want to segue a little bit back to soccer and pro sports.
Sure.
So, by being in the industry, you have special access, right? You're on the field, you know the people, you're seeing these professional, world-class athletes. When your kids get to meet them, do you ever explain to them like, listen, this isn't normal. This is kind of like a special thing. How do you keep them grounded?
Yeah, it's funny. I try to drag my little one to sporting events and say, come in the booth with me and do all these things with me. And it's sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. We had a trip planned. We'll see what happens with it. Although I don't think it's going to happen when my oldest son graduates. It's supposed to be on May 1st. May 2nd, we had a game in Orlando. So I said, you'll come to the stadium with me. You'll be in the booth with me. Everything else. I've interviewed, thousands of athletes, thousands of celebrities, political figures, everyday walk of life people. I've never really been personally in awe of anybody because,
Mm.
look, when you get to know athletes and you know them on a personal level, you realize that for the most part, not all of them, but for the most part, they're pretty humble, grounded people. They just happen to have a high profile job, and people kind of like hold them to a higher regard or put them on pedestals. And there are some athletes, there are some celebrities that embrace that. And those aren't the ones that I really enjoy being with or talking to or interviewing. But what I've been fortunate in working now with three different teams and actually being the voice of three different teams, which I think is a very different responsibility and a very different dynamic than just going in a booth or going to a game and putting on a headset and calling a game, which I've done thousands of times with people I've never met. But I've always enjoyed the aspect of being the voice of a team and going to practice and sitting with players and getting to know them and getting to know their wives and getting to know their kids and going through milestones together. And even when they're out of the game, a good friend of mine who played with the Fort Lauderdale Strikers, Miami FC, ended up with the Cosmos, started his career in MLS, retired, and is now married and has a child on the way. And those things are what are exciting to me because I know him and I know his now wife, and I'm excited for him. And yes, because of my job, I have the opportunity to do that. And that to me is cool because I see athletes go through the course of their career from when they're rookies to when they make an impact to when they retire. And all of those are milestones that we all go through.
Yeah.
We all start our career at one point. We all retire at some point. And hopefully in broadcasting, you have a larger career or a longer career than an athlete would. But I don't think my son's ever really been in awe. Couple of times where we've gone to Miami Heat games and we've been a little close to the players.
Yeah.
Yes, he gets a little excited. That's so and so. That's so and so. But when I've actually introduced him to people, the firm handshake, which I know you can't do anymore.
Right.
It's the elbow or the fist bump. I'm not even sure. Well, it doesn't matter. We're through the magic of the computer. So I guess look, we could fist bump right now. We can even shake hands if we want to. Um, but in the past, it was just like nice to meet you and carry on a conversation. And what was
Right.
really neat too is when it was teams that I was associated with, and I would go, after they met my son, they would always ask about it. And last year, one of the guys that played for the Strikers years ago was playing for Philly Union. And after the game, went downstairs, went to the locker room, and he takes off his kit and he hands it to me. And I'm like, dude, this thing weighs like 500 pounds. I now have your DNA. It stinks. And you're 5'7" and you wear a small. I'm telling you, it's not going to fit me. And he said, give it to your son. And that's what I did. And I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, it's cool. That's a really neat way to kind of give back to your kids. And I got to say, I've been really impressed and surprised throughout the process of the Awesome Dad Show. I've interviewed NFL champions and celebrities, and they're all of them are very down to earth and are just excited to kind of chat. Because the interesting thing about fatherhood is we all have our own unique journey, but we also all share a lot of the same challenges and difficulties. So I found that to
Sure.
be pretty remarkable. Uh,
Absolutely. And look, whether you are a CPA or you're an athlete or a broadcaster or an interviewer or whatever it is that you do, when you become a parent, your life changes.
right.
Good, bad, or indifferent, it changes. You're now responsible for someone and something more than just yourself. And there are trials and there are tribulations. There are good days and there are bad days. But ultimately, both of my kids have made me proud. At most times, they've disappointed me at times. And really, what's disappointing to me right now is that I truly believe, and I'm trying to mentally prepare myself for this so that they're mentally prepared for it, that come May 1st and come May 30th, um, I'm not going to be able to do for them what my parents were able to do for me, which is sit in an auditorium and
Yeah.
hear their name called and clap for them and throw them graduation parties and all of the things that go along with that rite of passage. And I have been thinking, what can I do, even from a virtual standpoint, to have something for them. And I've thought about it, and I guess it's going to be a waiting period because number one, the schools are going to have to make decisions on what they're going to do and how they're going to handle things. That's number one. And then number two, it's going to be what technology can we take advantage of? And I think there are a number of industries that are going to truly benefit from what's going on right now. And I think technology is going to be one of
Yeah.
those things. I mean, look, we're miles and miles apart, and we're having this conversation, and we are sharing our stories, and we're talking about our kids, and everything that goes along with that. And I can't tell you, and we were talking before we started. I'm used to being on your side of things, and I'm not as used to, even though I've been interviewed over time. Um, Usually, it's because somebody's asking me, what do I think about this game, or what do I think about this athlete, or everything. Not rarely am I ask questions about my life and my children. So kudos for you for getting me out of my comfort zone a little bit. Hopefully I'm doing okay with it. But I really will be interested to see what we can do with technology to bring people together over the course of the next days, weeks, and months, and how we're going to come out on the other side. I'm working very hard to try to figure out how I can keep as many businesses as possible in business
Yeah.
and generating income. And that's like I said, I do the credit card processing, and I'm reaching out to people and trying to express to them that there's an opportunity now, and to be open-minded to finding business solutions to stay afloat, and also to plan for what can take place in 2 months and 3 months. And right now everything is so fresh and so new. And what is it that we do over the next course of weeks and months to stay afloat? Because right now I think everybody is in a sense of bewilderment, and what do we do next, and what happens next, and every minute the plan's changing. The other day it was 1,000 people, and then by the end of the day it was stay away from 250.
10.
Then it
Yeah.
was 500. Yesterday's 10. Um, Personally, I wish that the president would just get in front of everybody and say, "Stay home. This is
Yeah.
what we need to do. We're going to get there." Every other country has already gotten to the point where they said, "Don't leave your house." So why are we waiting? We know how the numbers multiply. Just stay home. But
I
then we
think
have to figure out, how do we take care of each other?
Yeah, and I think most in my office, we ended up locking the door and saying, "Hey, we're not taking in clients physically. Please call us." And I think you're going to see more and more. But I still, I'll drive by a restaurant and it's packed full, and I'm like, that's probably not prudent. But just to go back to your initial point there, Bruce, this is a very unique time in history, and I think it's really important for all fathers, businesses, teachers to start exploring how they can leverage these new tools, these new technologies to stay afloat, because it's an unprecedented particular time in history that we're going through. Before we get into the world famous Actidad rapid fire questions here, Bruce, where can
Okay.
people find you if they want to know more about what you're doing with your sports broadcasting, your credit card processing? Where can we find out more about Bruce Silverman?
All right. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Bruce Silverman. The Twitter is at Silverman Show. The Instagram is at Silverman on Sports. Trying to be a little bit more active right now on LinkedIn. I'm really just trying to give some great insight and advice. I majored it in advertising at the University of Georgia. And there's one story that really stuck with me, and it was one of my posts yesterday. And if you don't mind, I'll tell the story really, really quick. 4 years of education, and this is the only thing that actually stayed with me. So, I guess that goes with the paperweight I got from graduating from the Grady School of Journalism. Um, but this was the story that was told me in an advertising class by a professor. There was a bakery in London that made bread, just like any other Wholesome or Wonder Bread or whatever it is. And when England was brought into World War II, the government came and said, we're going to take over your bakery and we're going to make munitions in your factory. And they did. But this is what the bakery did. For 4+ years, they advertised their bread. They promoted their bread, even though you couldn't buy it, taste it, or smell it. And that takes a lot of forethought. It also obviously takes a lot of cash when you don't have cash coming in to promote a business that basically can't do business. But when the war was over and the government said you can have your bakery back, couldn't keep the bread on the shelves.
Yeah.
And I think that's the insight that people need to take right now when it comes to business. Might have to stretch thin, might be difficult to do. Some people won't be able to do it. But if you can, find ways, even if it's social media and it's free, find ways to promote your business every single day. Even if you're not in business, if you're a restaurant and you can't sell food, salivate, take the pictures of your food, take all that food porn that you have right now and keep putting it out on social media so that when we can go back to your restaurant, when we can buy your goods and services, people are going to need, want, and desire them. So that would be my advice. If anybody wants to get more in depth on it, they can go on social media and reach out to me. Go to LinkedIn and reach out, and happy to talk to anybody. Even if I can't help you, even if you're an industry that can't use my expertise, I'm still willing to talk to anybody at any time.
Love it. Could not agree more. If everyone is at home, everyone's at home and they're on their phone. This is the time to reach them. Love that, Bruce. Great.
Absolutely. That's
Okay.
like what we're doing right now.
That's exactly it, brother. That's exactly it. So, Bruce, rapid
Yeah,
fire questions here. I got a few of them here.
bring it.
What's your favorite story to tell your kids?
Um, Probably anything sports related, and anything probably Georgia Bulldogs related, which right now I'm outnumbered in my house. Used to be that there were two Bulldogs and one Gator in my house, and now there's two Gators and one Bulldog. I still think the numbers are in my favor.
Very good. If there was one athlete that you could speak to, any athlete in history, who'd you talk to?
Oh wow. Um, Probably Jackie Robinson
Great one. Great one.
or Satchel Paige, Josh Gibson. Probably, yeah, somebody in the baseball realm. And I would want to talk to one of those guys. Um, I think because I'd want to know the stories, the trials, and the tribulations, and maybe in what we're going through today, some of those lessons would really be great to learn. In a little bit of a side note, but we're on it. So I mentioned a number of Negro League players right there. One of my favorite museums in the country, in the world, is the Negro League Museum in Kansas City. And Bob Kendrick, who is the the curator and the president, is an amazing storyteller. And I had a great experience of starting the tour there. And I think Cool Papa Bell might be one that I would want to meet as well. And he was a huge fan of Buck O'Neill, and the way that he spoke to Buck, I think I would like to meet him as well.
Love that. Great list. Bruce, pineapple on pizza, yay or nay?
I've done it. I will admit it. I'm okay with it.
Good deal.
Not
Good deal.
often. Not often. Usually in those places that you go to where they make everything right in front of you and you can just dump as many
Right,
things
right.
as you want, and I'll make them put the pineapple on. Okay, but here's the thing. Without juice, squeeze out the juice. Just the pineapple. Don't make the pizza any more watery than it needs to be.
Okay, I see what you're doing there. I like that. I like that. All right, last question here for you, Bruce. If you had a billboard that could reach millions and millions and millions of fathers, what would you put on that billboard?
Love them and give them a hug no matter what.
Love that. Bruce said it. I agree with it. Thank you, Bruce.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I know we've been talking about it for a while, and if it takes a virus to get us in the house to do the interview, I'm okay with it and happy to come on with you anytime. Great stuff.
You too, brother. We'll talk soon.